Hey everybody, this is Jason Womack here in Gold Island, Louisiana, presenting my paper for the social issues class at Level College for Dr. Brooke Osborne. My paper is titled The Social Impact of Abortion in America. And I began by looking at Roe versus Wade. I wanted to focus on the time period between 1973 and now because I just figured that the vast majority of the folks in the class are probably my age or younger. So on January 22nd, 1973, when they were citing the 14th Amendment, the Supreme Court made a controversial decision in the Roe versus Wade case, stating that abortion is a constitutionally protected right to all citizens of the United States of America. Uh, Roe versus Wade is still a controversial decision, and it dominates a lot of discussions during the electoral seasons, but also in everyday life. You know, there are so many people, it's such a hot button issue here in America. Uh, since this decision was made, more than 60 million human babies have lost their lives through abortion. Uh, Now, if you look at it, the teachings of Apostle Paul found in 1 Corinthians 10:23 says that we can understand that just because something is legal doesn't mean that it's good for you. Well, I took that and ran with it on my thesis and said that abortion has negatively impacted the U.S. through the murder of millions of human babies, through the mental and spiritual damage of victims of abortion, and through the targeting of minorities by the abortion industry. Now, I went on ahead and looked at some pro choice arguments, which are hard for me because I'm not pro choice. So, therefore, their arguments just a lot of times do not make sense to me. Uh, but before it's possible to really have a good discussion about abortion, we need to be able to fully understand what abortion is. And abortion is defined as the termination of a pregnancy after, accompanied by, resulting in, or closely followed by the death of the embryo or fetus. Now, pro choice advocates, they'll use the term embryo or the expression fetus or even the desensitizing term clump of cells to describe the human child which is growing in its mother's womb. Now, as I look for different arguments on the pro choice side, I ran into a paper written by a young lady named Diana Santa Cruz. She's a psychology student at the University of Colorado in Denver. And she gave three arguments, her personal arguments for why she's pro choice. Her first reason states that women should have the right to make the decisions about her own body. A woman should have the right to make decisions about her own body. Now, many in the pro-choice movement, they hold to the same ideology as Miss Santa Cruz, and they believe that no man should be able to choose what happens within the body of a woman. Now, pro-life advocates would argue that whatever happens to her body is her choice. But the problem is, her body is not the one being murdered in an abortion. Her second reason poses that pregnancy is a huge responsibility and one that not everybody can or should take on. And I agree. Raising a child, being pregnant is not something that is for everyone, and most people would agree with her. But pro life advocates like myself would argue that decisions concerning the desirability to raise a child, those should be considered prior to engaging in any sexual activity. So, her third argument relates to the problem within the adoption industry, and that is something that is well, I just agree with her on this. The adoption industry has so many problems, and I believe it should be a hot topic for both sides of the abortion issue. She said that adoption is not feasible since there's so many children who are already within the adoption and foster care system these days. Now, pro-life advocates like myself, we've got to deal with that argument. And if we truly intend to be pro-life and not just anti-abortion, we must be active in our lives in how we deal with children within these foster care and adoption industries. There's a lot of issues within this system, and we've got to help make strides to alleviate some of the issues that are faced by families who would love to adopt and foster children and cut through some of the red tape and the costs that are associated with it. I know for some of my friends who've gone through an adoption process. Oftentimes it's expensive. It takes a long time to go through the process, and a lot of times they are unable to get a child. So we need to see if we can help this situation. Plus, we need to be actively pursuing a way to help those that are in foster care or even in places like our Louisiana Baptist Children's Home over in Monroe. We need to be involved in that. So another argument for being pro-choice that Miss Santa Cruz didn't present was the instances of pregnancies caused by rape and incest. Now, Lydia Sod presented some common ground between pro-choice and pro-life advocates in a Gallup poll and said that 59% of pro-life advocates support abortions for victims of rape and incest. Now, I'm just going to say this. I'm not going to go along word for word verbatim with my paper, but no one who is sane would really suggest that a rape or incest victim should suffer or should be made to suffer more than they already have. But the idea that I'm posing and that many are posing is that an innocent child should not be murdered because of the criminal act of his or her biological father. There is no reason to murder an innocent child. In the rare instances, and they are rare, in the rare instances of rape and incest, care has to be taken by any pro-life advocates to ensure and counsel the victims in a way that ensures that she doesn't become the victim of her own choice to abort her child. Too many ladies in this world, too many women, young ladies, make this choice, and they suffer for a lifetime. They suffer for a lifetime because of their choice. We have many of these ladies who have deep depression issues caused by their choices they made. Honestly, without information, maybe they were being lied to at the abortion clinics, and it really does do a number on them. Now, for me, for the student, making an argument for pro-life isn't as hard as making an argument for pro-choice. The biblically based pro-life stance has 4 parts and consists of life beginning at conception, the intrinsic value of every human life, and that each person was created by God with a distinct purpose, and that the biblical truth found in Romans 8:28, that God works all things together for the good of those who love Him and are called according to His purpose. I believe that God is using everything to the good. Now, biblically and scientifically, life begins at the instant of conception and through the will and the plan of God. The pro-life argument, pro-choice argument for fetal sentience and viability doesn't address the verification of life and actually shows a lack of concern for all human life. Even though many on the pro-choice side advocate for the mother, if you're not advocating for the possible life of a child, this could be a woman in this case. that could grow up and do so many different things. These are human beings that are being murdered, and a lack of concern for them shows a lack of concern for all life. More concern is shown these days for the American bald eagle, the eggs of an American bald eagle in a nest, than shown for a human baby in utero. Uh, King David in Psalm 139 acknowledged his own value as a creation of God. He said, "For it was you who created my inward parts. You knit me together in my mother's womb, and I'll praise you because I've been remarkably and wonderfully made." He said, "Your works are wonderful, and I know this very well." Now, y'all, this is true. Uh, each person, your life began at the moment of conception. God knew you full well. He has a plan for you, and the value of your life is laid out and summed up in the cross when Jesus went and sacrificed himself for sinful man. So every person is born having been made in the likeness and image of God, following the lineage of the first man and woman, Adam and Eve. And while that likeness and image has been polluted by sin, it does not diminish the value of every life. Therefore, the first pro-life defense will be from the biblical view, with the question being asked, when does life begin? For myself, life begins when for the pro-choice advocate, life begins when the baby has passed through the birth canal and is visible. And honestly, with some today, even then, if a child survives an abortion, it's not an alive human being. It's not a sentient or viable human being to those who are on the pro-choice side in a lot of cases. Not everyone, but in a lot of cases. And they are willing to lay that child to the side, put it in a room by itself, and allow it to die rather than to go ahead and save its life. So other pro-choice advocates take their stance even further and say that it's not viable until it's able to live on its own. So the extreme argument of sentience is spotlighted by millions of people, from infants to senior citizens, who, according to this sentience criterion, this viability criterion, would never have been considered alive due to physical or mental disabilities. No person's abilities nor their disabilities make them alive or dead. A person is alive when he or she has been created in the mother's womb. When that person is conceived, they are a human at that point. So God has not only given us value, he's given us purpose. When God spoke to Jeremiah in Jeremiah 1:5, he said, "I chose you before I formed you in the womb, and I set you apart before you were born. I appointed you a prophet to the nations." Now, Jeremiah had been given purpose by God even before he was conceived. He was set apart to be God's prophet to the nations. Now, that shows in Jeremiah's life and is applicable to ours and every life that God does not only value life, but he sees life as purposeful. God's created each person with intrinsic value and a particular purpose for his or her life. And because of the importance of God's purpose in their life, it is the duty of each person to seek God in prayer and in his word, and to find out what specifically their purpose is. Let's just say this. Finally, in the instance of rape and incest being used as an acceptable reason for abortion, again, we've got to take great care to make sure and guard against further injuring any of the victims through our words or through condemnation. I'm just going to be honest with you. I watched videos of protest outside of a lot of the abortion clinics throughout our state and throughout our country. And sometimes you see pro-life advocates who are showing deep love for the people who are going in. They even show love for those who work there, regardless of whether they agree with them or not. And that's something that we need to look at. It's hard to imagine now anything good coming from rape or incest. But God, in His great love, in His sovereignty, and in His omniscience, He can take the worst things in life, and He can use it for good. We've got to inform victims. We've got to inform victims of the truth of life, as well as God's ability and intent to use their pain for their good and for the good of others. It's pretty rare. It's pretty rare to see these instances of rape and incest for abortion, but I'll just be honest with you. The child that is created in these instances no more asked to be conceived than his or her mother chose or asked to be raped. That child is innocent and again should not endure a death sentence for the evil act of his or her biological father. Now, another one I said was the disproportionate impact of abortion in America. Now, I'm gonna share a few facts with you because no community or in society has suffered the negative impact of abortion more than the African American community. Walt Blackman wrote that at a ratio of 474 abortions per 1,000 live births, black women have the highest ratio of any group in the country. And Zoe Dutton quoted the Center for Disease Control, stating that an African American woman is almost 5 times likelier to have an abortion than a white woman, and a Latina woman is more than twice as likely. It's so bad, it's become so bad, the disparity of the abortion numbers between different ethnicities in America is so great that African Americans are no longer the largest minority group in America. According to the U.S. Census data, there were 18,871,831 black American citizens in 1960. Since Roe versus Wade legalized abortion in 1973, abortion has killed an estimated 20 million black babies, more than the entire population of 1960. Now, seeing this impact, we can understand that abortion in the black community is an epidemic. The result of the legalization of abortion is the wholesale murder of millions of human babies, the mental and spiritual damage of victims of abortion, and the targeting of minorities by the abortion industry. There's been a long, hard fight going on in America since 1973, and it doesn't look like it's going to end anytime soon. So I had to ask, what is the solution to the abortion epidemic? The only thing I can think of is the return of Jesus Christ. Until that day, the only thing we have is temporary measures that can be taken. The main one that needs to be taken is revival. The body of Christ has to return to her first love, Jesus. God spoke to Solomon in 2 Chronicles 7:14 and said, "If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face, turn from their wicked ways, and I'll hear from heaven and forgive their sin and heal their land." Y'all, abortion is a sickness of the heart, and only a change of heart through revival is going to bring it to an end. Revival has to take place in the hearts of individual Christians, in the American churches, long before it will ever be seen taking place in mainstream Americans' lives. We've got to inform people of the value that God has for them, and therefore every life in America, including those who have or are considering having an abortion. The social impact of abortion in America is the death of millions of children, and those children cannot be brought back. What matters now is that pro-life advocates choose to do from here on, from today forth. Are we going to seek Jesus, or are we going to continue to lose the war by fighting battles under our own power? Thanks. Thanks for listening. I hope you were able to understand my arguments and my conclusion, and that you would have a good day. And I hope everyone in the class is doing well through this time of quarantine during the epidemic here in America. Y'all, I hope you have a blessed day.